Now, we've talked a lot in the past about Soundscape and some big news for Android lovers and Android users. Even people who don't love Android will get the joy of this. That is Soundscape coming to the platform, which is huge news. Kirsty Mcintosh is here from the Scottish Tech Army. I knew the Scottish Tech Army might have something to do with this. It's the only army I'm interested in hearing about these days. Kirsty, welcome back to Double Tap.
Thank you very much. It's fantastic to be back and with such great news as well.
It is. So obviously, Soundscape's been around for a little while. Tell us about your journey to Android in this.
Sure. Well, just a quick update on the background to this. Soundscape obviously was originally a research opportunity for Microsoft, and their research program was closing down, and the service was going to be switched off. And we found out about it, but we also found out that Microsoft had made all of that amazing code available under an open source license. So we grabbed a hold of it. We gave it to a team from the consultancy PwC, a volunteer team, who took a day to have a look at whether or not it would be possible to reproduce the app for the benefit of the community. And they proved that we could. And then we had an extraordinary set of independent volunteers who got together, and over the course of 4 months, we built the iOS version and launched it just before the original service was switched off. So that was August 2023. And since then, we've had about 14,000 downloads of the iOS app. Actually, it's still functioning. But there's never been an Android version. There was never originally an Android version. And a fabulously enthusiastic and hardworking team of volunteers have very, very quietly been working away in the background, building Soundscape for Android. And last week, we released it into the Play Store for live beta testing. So this is available for people to download and have a go at and give us some feedback and tell us what needs to be done to get it ready for a proper app launch.
It's been out for a week in the Google Play Store. And this is such big news. I know a lot of people are going to be so excited about this, because I think we kind of forget that when Microsoft said that they were ending its life, basically, lots of people were really concerned about this. And I remember when you came on last time, and it was back, it was resurrected. There was so much excitement because a lot of people rely on Soundscape, and now it's available on Android, like you said, for the first time. This is massive. This is great news.
Yeah, it's incredible, actually. The as I say, only was released, I believe, on either Thursday night or Friday. And the word got out that it had gone in there, and literally over the weekend we've had about just under 300 downloads of it. People are having a go, which is exactly what we want. So it's fantastic news. And I have to say, I hope it's okay to give a shout out to the team. There's a tiny team, a guy called Dave Craig, Adam Ward, who actually worked on reinstating the iOS app as well, Amira Fahem, Fanny Dumay, and Tunde Ojalabi, who's been the project manager on this. They've literally been the ones that have beavered away on this to make it possible. So our thanks very much go to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fair to say at this stage, I mean, you're saying it's in beta at this point. Although the app is out there, you're very much looking for feedback. This is an early edition of this app, right? And you're looking for people to feedback and comment. And I imagine with all those downloads, you're going to get a little bit of feedback.
Absolutely. A lot of it is actually, some of it's bugs, this bit doesn't work, or I don't understand this. But it's also helping a team that was never involved in the development of the original app understand how and why the original app was developed the way that it was. So the team is sighted, so they don't really have any experience of working, and living with such platforms. So this kind of feedback is going to be really, really valuable to them to help them understand, what else needs to be tweaked, what else needs to be fixed. I mean, we are genuinely looking for all feedback, and if it's okay, I've got an email address for people to submit that feedback to when we're at the end of this interview. But also, we need some help with some other things as well. So if anybody is interested in helping us with translations for other countries, anybody who's fluent in any language, those translations will be hugely valuable. And we're also looking for people to join the closed beta team, which is where the improvements that come as a consequence of the open feedback will be released to certain people to test it before we actually release it out into the wild. So if anybody's interested in joining that closed beta team, then by all means get in touch. And also user guides, again, sighted team, writing user guides for people who are not sighted, or have visual impairment, I think is going to be really important to have some proper expertise in there to help us develop those user guides. So if anybody's interested in any of those things, this is very much an open source project, and anybody who wants to contribute and help us with it would be very welcome.
Oh, I'm sure you'll get so many volunteers for that. Absolutely. I'm interested. Is there any difference between the iOS version and the Android version? Was there any features or functionality that you weren't able to port across?
It's the initial release's ambition is for it to be as close an experience with the iOS version as possible. I think some features are slightly missing at the moment, but again, that's around the team's ability to understand why certain things were developed the way they were. And, that feedback is already, literally even over the weekend, some of the feedback that was coming in, the team were going, oh, right, and that makes sense now, right? That kind of stuff. And actually, it's not that they thought it had been badly developed. It's just it's that understanding, that experience of it. So I think that this kind of feedback, will be really valuable. The intention is to get it so it's as close to the iOS version as possible. Obviously, we want to do work on the iOS version as well. I'll tell you about the story about that in a minute. But certainly from the outset, the ambition has been to effectively reproduce the app in Android that was available to everybody on iOS.
Let's talk about the iOS version in a minute, but I want to understand a little bit more about the business model here and how this works, how this is funded, because I think a lot, and we did talk about this before the last time you were on the show, but I think for new listeners who may not be aware of it, I think it's good to understand, and also for us to get an update, I sense, on where we're at with this, because there's always a concern in our community when something comes along that's open source. It's great and it's wonderful and we're so glad it's there, but is it sustainable? Can it be sustainable? And you've tried to build a model that is sustainable. Talk about that.
I haven't done a very good job with it, I'm afraid. Yes, so
that's not the answer we were looking for.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's honest answer though. Well done.
It is honest. I love that.
It's good to be. I want to be very upfront about it. When I spoke to you the last time, I wanted to put forward a proposal to the funding organisations, within the community, to say if you all contribute, then it's cheap for everybody. And our determination has always been that it is free at the point of use. So anybody who needs the app, who's got a phone, can download the app and use it for free, and they don't have to worry about paying for anything. The operating costs that sit around this on iOS have been quite expensive is the wrong word. The app could be better optimized so that it runs more cheaply. And the Android version has been developed to be just that. So it's running it as almost the cheapest possible way of doing this. And we are talking about, really quite small amounts of money, a couple of £1,000s a year to run the app kind of stuff, and obviously the more people that use it, the more expensive it gets, but it's tiny incremental, increases. And in essence, what we intend to do with the iOS app is to actually, re-optimize it. There is the underlying infrastructure of the way the Android app is built means that potentially we can actually re-engineer the iOS version to run as efficiently. We might not have to, but the idea is to kind of try and drive these costs down as much as possible. Now, everybody thinks that's a great idea and nobody wants to pay for it. So, which is kind of the usual kind of thing. But the costs are such at the moment that actually we have been sustaining those costs ourselves. But in the long term, that's obviously, not really a very practical solution. And also, as you say, it runs a risk there that I think would make people a little nervous. So because the Android version is now potentially coming on stream soon, I think the story around this is slightly different. So this is about an application that is available to anybody with a mobile phone, rather than just iOS users. So now it's much more accessible, genuinely. And it is my intention to go back out and put that argument out into the community again and say, you should be collectively supporting this. We have a Tech for Good repository here at the Scottish Tech Army, which doesn't just contain Soundscape. It contains other applications that we've developed through some of our initiatives that are reusable for other charities. So we're building tools where they're not available already for charities. And the idea is if we've built something, for example, for a visual impairment charity in Scotland, then we're going to offer it to any visual impairment charity anywhere else because it's now available to them. And we have the resource in our volunteer pool to actually implement that solution on, for that charity. Now, our costs are cheaper in this because it's volunteer labour that's being donated in essence to develop the app. And there's a lot of enthusiasm and a constant sort of refreshment of the oxygen into that bloodstream, if you like, because we get new volunteers coming in all the time. So then actually in terms of its longer term development, that's easy. It's our volunteer pool. But those underlying costs, we have to find a way to sustain them in the longer term. So I still believe that it's a collective thing. If you asked half a dozen organisations to make an annual contribution of really not very much, barely a rounding error for them, that actually it would sustain something that's available to the community at large.
It's a problem that so many other developers and companies have come across. We've been talking about sustainability of apps for a long time now.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is.
Can I ask, who are you not specifics, I know you can't tell me specifics, but are we talking here charities you're looking to get involved here? Are you talking about business?
No, I'm talking about the charities that support people in their communities, because actually I think that's where the impetus and the desire to keep those applications running actually lives. It's they're dealing with the people who need these types of tools. And actually, when you talk to the larger charities, and when I'm talking about we're barely running to the thousands. You know what I mean? We're not talking. And Tech Army doesn't take anything for this. This is a volunteer initiative. So it's really literally the kind of the airtime, if you like, that we're looking to try to cover the costs of. Don't really want to look for corporate sponsorship for that, because corporate sponsorship has a kind of finite kind of element to it. And as soon as your corporate sponsorship for 3 years runs out, then you're scrambling. Somebody's got to go scrambling around trying to find the next bit.
We see this all the time. Yeah,
exactly. So actually, if you can say to the funders and the really big charities that are supporting the community, I think some of the smaller charities as well, this is your this is a tool for your people. This is something that you can almost absorb as a core cost, if you like, because it's something that you're making available. It's just like your brochures that you print or your podcasts that you put out or whatever it is, actually saying that this is one of the things that you can sustain. And it doesn't set a precedent for masses and masses of pieces of technology. This was never intended to be a chargeable item. It was always expected to be free at the point of use. It's not like the haptic belts and the amazing kind of tools that are out there. And actually, there is so much fabulous technology available to the visually impaired world. But this is free, and this is the thing that gets me. This brings as many people as possible into an environment where they can have some form of independence and confidence in moving around. And it's not going to cost them anything more than they already have if they have a phone. So
it absolutely bamboozles me that this is not the easiest sell in the world. You should be pushing on an open door. This just is very surprising to me to hear that. And actually quite disheartening, actually. I mean, the amount of money you're talking about, collectively, if, 10 organisations around the UK put the money in, it would be barely noticeable to them.
I think
it seems
there's
obvious.
A couple of things. It does seem obvious, but there's an element of control and an element of responsibility. So I think what we need to do is to put the argument better around. You don't have to take responsibility for it yourselves. It's going to sit in our repo. We're going to make sure it stays up to date for the latest versions. We're going to commit to doing all of that. But I also then you're worrying about who gets to decide what's in the app. And the whole point about trying to not go to one organization and say fund the whole thing was because we didn't want to cede that control away from the community that's using it. We want to say, actually, you tell us as a community what you need. I think it's really interesting when we did quite a bit of user feedback on Soundscape for iOS after it launched, and we had lots of conversations with a really fantastic small group of people. And it was really interesting because part of the desire from that group was like an app that did absolutely everything. It didn't need any of the other apps that were out there. It was going to be this enormous and bulky and sort of slightly complicated thing that had all these kind of ugly barnacles kind of added onto it because people wanted various different things. And in the end, what actually is needed is a simple, fabulous app like the iOS version is, now the Android version is becoming, that segues, if you like, from and to other applications with ease. And that's the next part of this evolution. Is there's other fantastic tools. As you move from a GPS environment to an internal environment, instead of having to close the app down and open another one, is how can we potentially connect the two together so that Soundscape just works out that it's not needed anymore and something opens up in its place. So there's some interesting and fun things that can be done around that. But that's the kind of thing where the understanding from the community what they need to happen. They might not necessarily understand technologically how that should happen, but we understand from them what it is they're looking for, which is a simplified way of moving around, a simplified way of moving between environments. And I think that's, for me, is it's so important. This is not consumer driven in terms of profit line. It's user driven in terms of need. And I think it's a really important distinction that needs to be made there. And that element of who decides, I think, is part of the challenge around a framework where you're asking lots of people to shell out some money and fund it. It's somebody saying, well, if I'm giving 50% of the money, does that mean that we have more control? Do we have a board to decide in the direction and everything? And I put my hand up and say, actually, half of these things, it didn't occur to me at the time, would be part of the conversation.
So irritating to hear, but yeah, I feel your pain, Kirsty, I really do.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about the feedback. I don't doubt you will, because look how far you've come so far.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here with all the questions.
No, you carry on.
I just want to ask this, because especially about feedback, because where are you getting that feedback right now? How are you gathering that? Where are you getting it from? Users coming to you, or have you got a connection into the community through an organization?
It's predominantly people telling us what they do and they don't like about the app that they have downloaded. So in terms of the iOS version. But that said, I mean, I'm the chair of Seascape, the Five-Face Visual Impairment Charity, and I have access to the wonderful Stuart Beveridge, who will tell us like it is every time, which is absolutely fantastic. And also with guide dogs as well. I mean, Tommy and the team at Guide Dogs have always been extremely supportive of what we were trying to do. The rehabilitation, staff that are teaching people how to use these tools, their feedback has been really valuable. And that would be the case again with the Android version as well, is once they start, potentially trying to show people how to use it, their feedback on its usability will be crucial. So we have a lot of support, from that perspective. But I have to say, the community itself is never backward in coming forward. But if it comes across something that it thinks, it's either a great idea, we get a lot of, this is fantastic, I'm so glad I found it, kind of communications, as well as this could be better, or I can't make this work. And then even as I say, just over the weekend, some of the feedback has been really informative to the team. Please don't ask me to explain it; it's way too technical for me. But I know that I know the team has already said that the feedback's been hugely valuable. So actually, at the moment, it's one of these really interesting things. I hope Dave will forgive me for saying this, but I don't think they really appreciated just how amazing this is, the work that they've done and what they've produced. So I don't think they were quite expecting the level of enthusiasm that this was met with. I think they thought that they would slip this out quietly and nobody would notice. And of course, it's just like, the klaxons are going off everywhere and everybody's, but it's great. It's exactly what we need, is that rich feedback means that the app will be better in the end.
I was getting emails, or WhatsApp was getting messages over the weekend. Soundscape's here. It's on Android. Tell the world. And we're like, okay, great. What? Okay. That's fabulous. We will. So that was immediately why the first call I made, or first email I sent on Monday, was to you, because I thought we've got to connect and talk about this. I also want to give mention to the volunteers who are giving their time to do this, because this is something that I have to say is kind of unique and wonderful about what you do at the Scottish Tech Army. You have volunteers coming in, giving time on various projects, including this one. And I guess what's brilliant about this is that those volunteers who are, I'm guessing, wanting to go on or are already doing this as a full-time gig, or want to go on and make it their job, are learning so much about accessibility, which is crucial to app development going forward for everybody. Absolutely.
It's amazing, actually, the things we take for granted when we are sighted, and particularly when it comes to our assumptions around how we would navigate around a mobile phone. I think it's always really interesting that suddenly people suddenly realise, and even the request immediately around we're going to need help with these user guides, because they just can't apply the same logic. So, and they know it. So, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. But yes, I mean, accessibility first really is utterly crucial. And we try to apply that actually in all of the work that we do. I mean, the Scottish Tech Army is well over 4,000 volunteers registered now, which is an extraordinary number. We've worked with more than 400 organisations. Soundscape is an unusual thing for us. We don't normally do kind of app development things, and we don't go hunting around looking for dying apps. This one sort of came to us and fell into our lap, if you like. But we also have a corporate side of this, which is effectively sort of part of our own revenue stream that actually allows us the Tech Army to function at all. And it's called the Tech for Good Alliance. And it was through that PwC, came to this project in the first instance. And since then, in the last couple of years, the amount of work that they've done has been absolutely extraordinary. And I always say to people that these people are the brightest and the best that are members of the Tech for Good Alliance, the volunteers that come through these corporates, and tapping into their expertise and their willingness to use it, I think is wonderful. It's a proper civil society story. It's how we should be as a community, as a civilization, or as a nation. And people like Dave Craig and Adam, and Tunde, they've just got on with it. They've just quietly self-managed. As I say, I was somewhat surprised to see that they released into beta last week, because I hadn't kind of quite kept up to speed with just how far along they were. And I love that actually about the Tech Army, that they just got on with it and made it happen for themselves. And they're very professional in it. I can go in and have a look at whatever they've been doing. I got a fabulous report from Tunde, the project manager, about where they were at, where they were trying to get to, and what needed to happen next. And that's what's so lovely about this. It's like a business without any money. It's great.
Sounds a good business. I quite like the sound of that.
Well, it operates as professionally, I suppose, is what I mean. It operates the same way, and it was just as much willingness.
But it's got heart.
And I know that the volunteers, it is. But the volunteers, I know, get a lot out of this as well. This isn't just a one-way thing. I know that.
No, it's a win-win, isn't it?
Adam have taught themselves how to do a lot of this stuff. I mean, Adam Ward, who works on the iOS project, taught himself how to code for Android because of this. And that's, everybody gets something from it, which is great.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of people are going to be so excited about this. I know people have been asking for the Android version since, the initial release from Microsoft. So, yeah, fantastic news.
Yeah, even I blew the dust off my Android phone just to download it. Can't wait to try it. It's going to be wonderful. And obviously, people can feedback. Now, you mentioned an email address for people to feedback to. So where should they direct their thoughts?
This is quite a long email address, but hopefully it will make sense. So the email address is soundscapeandroid@scottishtecharmy.support. So soundscapeandroid@scottishtecharmy.support. And anybody who wants to volunteer to support us in there, anybody who's got any feedback on the use of the app, if you just use that email address, and we'll pick it up from there. It is volunteer-driven help desk, by the way, so please don't expect, a turnaround in 5 minutes if you've got a question or a problem. So the team will come back to you as soon as they possibly can.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear people already emailing away, writing those user guides. Come on, listeners, let's make it happen.
Yeah, well, look, it's a community approach. That's the whole thing, right? And I love that aspect of it. But we've got to get that funding sorted out. So, I think you'll hear many rants from me coming down the line on this topic. I think organizations need to get their hands in their pockets on this, quite frankly. And, it's not a huge amount of money. Some of these charities have got millions. I'm not saying available, but they have millions of pounds coming in. It can't all be going to help blind people. I mean, I worked for a charity for 15 years. I know there's a heck of a lot of admin costs. Maybe some of that could be apportioned, let's just say. Anyway, Kirsty, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Keep in touch. Let us know how this progresses.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. It's not live for real yet, by the way, so I'll come back to you as soon as I have a date on that. But we haven't put a deadline on it. We'll let the guys do what they need to do, and then when it's ready, we'll come back and tell you.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Kirsty. Take care.
Thank you. Lovely to see you.
You too. Thank you.